Hi, my beautiful friends. Thank you so much for being here and hanging out with me. We are going to be having just a really cozy, reflective chat today about kind of my personal evolution and approach to tarot and astrology. I feel like this is kind of getting back to basics. It's something I've never really covered or sat down to explore specifically, and I've been a little nervous to sit down and explore this explicitly. I don't know why. I think it's because it is tender, it is personal. The way that each of us connects with these tools, the way that we evolve with how we work in this world is a really, really personal thing. We're each going to have a slightly different approach, a slightly different way of using these tools or viewing the world, and we each have our own experiences. So, when I'm talking about my use of tarot and astrology and how I've evolved and where I am now with it, it is really personal. It feels like I'm sharing a really private part of myself in a way, even though this is work that I do and put out onto YouTube and into the world regularly. Me talking about my approach to it and the way I've evolved is so, so personal. And I think a lot of you will probably be on the same wavelength as me, because this community is full of people who are curious, and we're exploring ourselves and wanting to find healing, find grace, find peace, find more love and connection in that deep mystery. So I think a lot of what I'll be saying here today, it's not going to be anything shocking or surprising, and I think a lot of you will probably feel a connection to many of the things that I've said, because I don't think these are like new revelations. I think these are pieces of wisdom that have been practiced for thousands of years, and I'm a student of this life. But I just thought it would be fun to kind of chat about it and talk about where I am now. The last year and a half, I've been kind of feeling really private, during all of the pandemic stuff and all of my immigration stuff, which I'm going to be so excited when I'm able to talk about that more. I've kept it kind of private because I'm still in the midst of dealing with all of the immigration stuff and all of the lifestyle stuff. It's been a long road, and I do want to talk about that more and bring that into the fold, but I've been feeling really private, and so getting into this chat feels private, but I think is also important, and also hopefully just fun and soothing. So anyway, the last couple of years too, I think I have been kind of growing and changing. I've been here on YouTube doing this work for 5 years, and before that I've been studying and working with tarot and astrology for years and years. But I'd really say that these last 5 years of when these tools have been really central in my life, and all of those 5 years I have grown and I have changed, and the way I approach these tools has changed in pretty big and powerful ways, I would say. I feel like I've learned so much about myself in exploring these topics, and what I kind of see as valuable and what I found I've kind of had to leave behind in using these tools. Because one thing I would say is that I realized at some point over the last years, in order to keep my heart in this, I was going to have to do this in my own way. Like I couldn't just toe the line. I couldn't just do things the way that they've always been done. I couldn't just use the tools in kind of the more traditional sense, which what is traditional? I mean, once again, I'm not here to rag on anybody else's approach or on anything like that. But I knew that I kind of had to make it my own. I kind of had to connect to it in my own way from my heart center. And for me, that involved kind of stepping away from using these tools to reinforce like traumatizing, stress-inducing, fear-mongering type narratives around growth, around love, around grace. I just couldn't do it anymore, because for me, if I was looking at a chart, or if I'm exploring my own placements in a natal chart, or somebody wants to talk about those topics. And, you know, we've all heard readings or seen discussions that tell us that, you know, well, this square means you're going to always have a hard time in relationships. You're always going to be late to things, or you're always going to have to come back around and around and around to the same pattern. That really didn't sit well with me. And I realized that the only way that astrology was going to mean anything to me is if I could approach it from that place of love and holding it a lot lighter too. I mean, that's something I would say for both tarot and astrology. For me, these tools, they are not meant to be a really heavy, industrious end all be all of the process of existing in this life. For me, the way to work with them that's fulfilling for me is to hold them lightly, hold them with an open mind, hold them with curiosity, and hold them with like a creative mindset. So being open to the way that we interpret these things, not just taking for granted that this is what this energy is and it's always going to be that, letting it evolve and morph, and our understanding of each of these things to evolve and morph. And each of us is going to have a different way that shows up. The way these archetypes and these energies show up, we're going to have a different way that morphs in our life. But I found that I was feeling really uninspired by conversations around constantly using these systems to tell ourselves scary, stressful, and yet familiar stories about patterns and identities in this world. So I knew that I needed to really embrace that I'm just somebody who is going to look at the kinder, warmer, loving, deeper, wise messages. And I'm not going to be so interested on the end results of things, or on the getting of things, or on any of those more, I think, buzzworthy kind of headline grabbing type topics that are very addicting and very entrancing, and yet also really exhausting. The other thing I would say that I've really come to explore in tarot is this whole idea of like our personal placements. I'm not here to say that we're not allowed to connect with those and explore those. I think that's great. But I know for me, you know, like I'm a Leo sun and I'm a Sag rising and a Virgo moon, and that's all beautiful. That's great. But one of the goals that I've really come to hold in my heart over the last couple of years is that I don't just want to hem myself in by these placements and say, well, this is just who I am. This is who I am. This is how it's going to be. I want to explore all the archetypes. I want to expand and explore all the ways that I can be in the world. And that's not to say that I don't have like my preferences and my set points. I tend to be introverted. I need a lot of rest. I move a little slower in the world. Those are things that I know that are true about me, but they're not necessarily just defined by the fact that I was born with my sun in Leo. Right? I want to explore what it means to connect to energies that aren't strong in my chart, like Aries, like Pisces, and just have fun with it. Once again, holding these tools lightly in my hand. And I think the big thing for me is that, yes, once again, I don't want these systems to become new little prisons for us to define, categorize, label ourselves, keep ourselves locked into anything, but instead to help ourselves feel relaxed into who we're becoming, and getting curious about that and open, and knowing that, you know, there is a flexibility, there is an aliveness to this world that isn't about this like kind of rigid systems type work. And so for me, it's interesting because in many ways, astrology is a bit rigid if you're kind of doing it in a more traditional way. It's got a bit more rigid rules, and I'm just intrigued by the flexibility of things, the relational aspect of things, the way that perception and experience and memory and energy and give and take all morph and change us over time. That to me is much more interesting. But I do think this can be a tool set that can be a lot of fun and can help us do that exploration. So that's why I stick with it, and that's why I still use it now. I think tarot is a little bit of a simpler topic in many ways because it's much more freeform in so many ways. You know, tarot is much more about open interpretation, right? I mean, astrology is too. I mean, you could have the same birth chart read by 3 different people and have very different tones to each of those readings. So there is flexibility there as well. But tarot is very open-ended, and that's part of the reason I love it. I think it's a great tool for kind of connecting with ourselves, kind of looking into that mirror, noticing where, like, if we get a card and it makes us feel really uncomfortable, what is that uncomfortable feeling? You know, what's coming up for us there? Or if we get a card that excites us and gives us hope, we can follow that trail as well. Like, I think about if you're having a reading or you're pulling cards for yourself and you get the star, that's such an exciting card. Where does that star card immediately lead your mind, right? We can really explore ourselves with it. And once again, I really like to hold tarot really, really lightly. It's something I actually don't read cards for myself very often anymore, because what I will say is that we can pull as many cards as we can, you know, in a week, in a month, in a year. But really the goal at the end of it is to trust ourselves enough to build that trusting relationship with listening to our bodies, listening to our spirits, listening to our souls, that allows us to know when we need to set a boundary, or when it's time to make a move, or when it's time to challenge ourselves. That's really the goal. I think tarot can help us get there by kind of doing that self-reflection. It can also be like a really nice, soothing ritual, and I still do take moments to do that with myself. But I think it can, you know, we've all been in that place, and I've definitely been in that place in my life where I had something, where I had an outcome that I thought, like, this is what I need. And not shockingly, it was like with some guy in the past, you know, who was like, I just have to be with this person, you know, like years ago. And so, you know, I keep doing readings for myself, hoping that the answer would be there. And this is so classic. So many of us have been here, and, you know, like looking at the cards and keeping doing readings. And even if there would be a truth that I was feeling in myself about that situation, right? That, like, I wasn't really happy, and that wasn't really speaking to my soul. It was kind of something I just wanted to have control and power over. I wanted to have, you know, work out a certain way. It's like I wouldn't listen to the wisdom no matter how many cards I pulled anyway, right? And it's like we're resisting our own knowing. It doesn't matter how many cards we pull, it's still not going to be enough. It's not going to be enough of a sign, right? So I think too, like, once again, holding tarot lightly, approaching it from a curious, soft place of grace is where we get the most joy out of it. And in the end, honestly, when I think about tools like tarot and astrology, for me, if they're not bringing creativity, joy, warmth, curiosity, all those beautiful energies that have to do with, like, the true self, the soul self, into the mix, I don't want them in my life. Because we have so many systems that exist in this world, so many systems that are already doing the work of telling us who we need to be, of defining us, of reminding us of where we should be in pain, or where we should doubt ourselves, or where we should slow down, or where we should speed up, or where we should modify ourselves. Like, I don't really feel like any of us want or need another system telling us that we're fated to always be frustrated, or always be afraid, or always be in the haunted houses of our lives, and that that's just how it is, or that, you know, we're limited to this one characteristic of ourselves because we have a ton of energy in one sign. That we are, you know, so for me, all the joy goes away when I go there. And all the joy returns when these are just tools to expand my creative horizons, to explore who I'm becoming, to get curious about how we can also redefine some of these old symbols to match where we're headed as people, as individuals, as a culture, as a society. I think these tools, they are also reflections of our culture. They're also a reflection of how we changed. I've talked about this before briefly, but something like Mercury retrograde was not a popular astrological conversation piece until the 1960s or 70s. And you think about the hundreds and hundreds of years that this system had been used before, nobody was giving much mind to that. And now it's a very, very popular part of the discussion, right? And so these are reflections also of how we use these tools in our culture. So my question is, why not? Why not take these tools and like bring them forward with us, bring them into whatever is going to feel right for us here in this present moment in culture, in this present moment in our lives and who we are today. Why not explore what those could look like and feel like when used as a source of kindness and love and self-love and growth and curiosity and play and exploration and relaxation and all of those beautiful energies. So for me, that's the question that keeps coming up. And like I said, it's like, if I didn't just let myself be open to where these tools are taking me and how I'm changing with the way that I work with them, like I couldn't keep working with them. And I can feel in myself that there are changes coming up with the way I want to do this work. Like, I'm not saying I'm going anywhere, don't worry, but like, as I'm learning to honor myself, as I grow, as I come into deeper wisdom, as I get older, as I get wiser, as I have so much personal experience with these tools and how I've changed, it's so important to acknowledge that. How do you all connect with tarot and astrology? What are your kind of personal philosophies with this? I feel like I just scratched the surface, but you know, it's a place to start. And if you are somebody who has a project or an idea or a chat or a piece of art or a conversation or a chapter of your life that you're wanting to begin, just know, just get in there and begin. That's how I felt about doing this chat. Like, I honestly put it off for a few days because I was nervous to sit down and just begin somewhere with this series of chats about these deeper topics, which I'm hoping to continue. My really big dream would be to do one of these every week, just kind of vlog style chats that we can hang out, have a coffee, talk about life, talk about these big topics. I think it would be so much fun. So let me know topics that you may want me to cover. And I had to start somewhere, so I thought I would start here. So hopefully we all enjoyed this. And yeah, let me know how you all experience tarot and astrology in your lives. I would love to hear that. And also any topics you'd love to hear more about here. Any questions you have for me, I would be really curious to hear what those are. I hope you are having a beautiful November so far, and I will talk to you next week, hopefully in our next chat. Cheers!